the moderator of our conversation today, Julia Crowley.
Thanks, Molly. Appreciate it. I wanted to just take kind of just a high level overview of kind of what we do each month, kind of a part of this group. We believe it's critical to the long-term success of Iowa's technology industry to have an advocate for a diverse technology workforce, and that all Iowans deserve opportunities to participate in the innovation economy. We come together each month to build a network of employers, educators, and mentors to discuss issues and seek solutions to foster DEI in Iowa. In the past, we've brought you stories and perspectives to kind of share, inspire, and reflect on. However, today, like Molly mentioned, we really want to kind of discuss tangible changes to organizations that can help attract and retain a diverse workforce. To do that, we brought together representatives from 3 Iowa businesses to discuss hiring practices and HR benefits and take a peek at kind of just a part of their journey and kind of what led them to make some changes. I'm Julia Crowley with Akkodis. Akkodis is a global staffing, IT, and engineering consulting firm. I help employers with flexible and scalable talent acquisition, either through contract or direct hire, providing project or skilled specific expertise, either in-country, nearshore, or offshore. Just like Molly said, I'm going to be the moderator today, but we really are encouraging a lot of questions and comments from all of you. We want this to be a discussion. None of us here today feel like we are experts, and we really recognize that this is a journey. Joining me today is Jason Katcher, VP and CIO of ITA Group, Carrie Boothe, Human Resource Manager at Covariance, and Stacy Lovan, Talent Acquisition at Wellmark. Jason, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. So Jason Katcher, just a quick introduction of ITA Group. To be clear, Stacy and Carrie and Julia are the experts. I'm just here to fill in the gaps. So ITA Group, as many of you probably know, is an employee-owned global engagement agency. We really provide custom crafted solutions to motivate and inspire employees, channel partners, customers, event attendees, really focusing on connecting the individual to our client's brand. We do this through a combination of solutions like communications, employee recognition, years of service, incentives, all types of events, loyalty programs, and many other kind of proven creative engagement strategies that really are customized for the specific needs of our clients. I think what the best part about our business, it's all about people. And we're here to talk about people and how do we help and retain and acquire good talent that ultimately we can enjoy, right, and have as a great teammate and a great employee owner. So a little bit about ITA Group. I think I'll turn it over to Carrie to describe her space.
Thanks. So a little bit about Covariance. We are a fintech company located in West Des Moines. We have about 70 employees. I joined the company a little over a year ago. When I walked in the door, we were about 65 employees. So we've grown a little bit and have known that we need to retain our talent and attract talent. So looking at the benefit offerings that we have, we've been able to make some substantial changes to the basic benefits. We already had a bunch of other things going on that were very impressive when I joined. So again, you know, what we do is we're fintech and we are for credit unions and banks to be able to process their loans quicker. So we're a software company. Thank you. Stacy, on to you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stacy Lovan. As Julia mentioned, I work in talent acquisition and actually serve as the outreach program consultant. I've been with Wellmark for about 12 years now and manage our internship programs as well as our community outreach efforts. And really Wellmark's mission is to provide an array of high quality, affordable health insurance, making it competitive. And then we also, Wellmark is mainly servicing Iowa and South Dakota.
All right, thank you. So we're just gonna kind of dive right into it. And Jason, I'm gonna start with you just because you started the first time. So, but please, Carrie, Stacy, if you have something, please just hop in. But I guess first question is, what prompted, your change? Where did your journey begin? Did it begin with employees? Did it begin in HR with your executive team? And was there anything kind of in this journey that you guys were hoping to correct?
Yeah, so for us, we're growing significantly, and obviously as we're growing, we recognize that we have an ongoing need for talent to attract it, retain, and obviously motivate for our employee owners and such. And the other part of it is that we really recognize that we have a strong need for our clients to have team members that reflect the diversity of our clients. And so how this kind of kicked off for us as part of our strategic planning process, really over the last 3 years, we've recognized and placed a special emphasis on our team member experience. We know our team members are critical to the success of us as a company, as well as for our clients. And so our executive team, in partnership with our people and culture, our HR area, really just sat down and said, hey, how do we have to continue to improve our ability to track and hire the best employee owners? So we also listened very, very closely to our existing team members. We've did some surveys. We tried to understand where they had interest, where we thought maybe we're falling short. We also leaned into a lot of our committee leaders. We have lots of different committees, one of those being a culture crew, just talking about our culture. Who do we want to be? How do we want to represent ourselves? How do we want to work with each other? We leaned into our Ignite committee, which is really all about volunteering and community give back. How do we want to represent ourselves in the community? Our women's leadership group had a lot of voice to try to help us understand, to make sure that we're really caring for their specific needs. And then very specifically, what we call our IDEA Council, which is our inclusive diversity, equity, and allyship, who also focuses very strongly on belonging. And so we listened to all of those conversations, discussions, and feedback, and then decided where we needed to focus on how do we improve essentially our overall benefits package. And ultimately that led to our team member experience. And so we took a lot of important steps to kind of take the next step in our evolution of our benefits and how we continue to improve in those specific areas, knowing that we weren't perfect and that we were probably falling short in some areas, and other areas we were doing well, but wanted to continue to improve. And so it really prompted ourselves in the sense of saying, how do we make sure we have the best team? How do we retain them? How do we attract them? And so we made some really good steps to help improve that overall experience.
And just real quick, Jason, before we move on, is there anything specific that you want to kind of share that really changed within the benefits? I know we've talked a little bit about time off being one of those things, but is there anything that you want to share?
So I probably have 7 or 8 things, so I could probably talk for hours on this. So I'll try to keep it really short. I think we did a great job of revisiting our hiring practices for one. Just to make sure that we're really seeking the diverse talent that we want, specifically within our pool, and how we created that. And that led to some of the benefit changes. So one of those key ones for me is we're an employee-owned company, and we had a vesting schedule of 5 years. And so a lot of times our team members are saying, well, 5 years from now, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, right? The tech turnover, and especially within the space, was quite high. And so we actually changed that vesting schedule to 3 years. So a team member who's with us will be vested in 3 years, will become an employee owner. At that time, they also move from kind of paid time off to what we call my time off. And it really allows them sort of the unlimited time off and flexibility, if you will, to take the time off when they need it, and when they need it, and how they need it, and so forth. So those were a couple of big things. Some areas we are falling short that we improved were around paid parental leave, really for both birthing and non-birthing parents, volunteer time off, We've improved those. We expanded our overall paid holidays to include important days like Martin Luther King Day. We offer up a well-being day and just really allowing our team members to have that. We also just re-emphasized our approach towards flexible work schedule, just empowering and trusting team members to really determine where and when they work the best. And so there's just a lot of things that, as you can tell, I like. I think probably what is interesting for me is we expanded our paid sabbatical time off to include a work abroad program. So we've been growing as a company. We've recently acquired companies on both coasts, 2 in the UK, key partnership in Eastern Europe, key partnership in Singapore. And so as part of a 3-week paid sabbatical, every 5 years, we offer them travel vouchers to be able to go on those trips. If they want to go abroad to one of our locations, they can actually go work abroad for 3 weeks, and we allow them to sort of work from our sister locations, our partner locations, and then get to explore on the weekends. And we actually help create a stipend, if you will, for that activity. And so between the sabbaticals and that work abroad program, expanding of our supported holidays and so forth to include key celebrations like Diwali and others, I feel like we've put a total package together that really does attract, and we've actually seen a benefit from it. We've actually seen our retentions improve. We've seen our attraction, people applying because of those benefits improve. So overall, I think we've made a lot of changes, focus on team member, their experience, and then helping them, hopefully us to eventually attract more diverse talent.
Awesome.
I tried to keep it short. I could talk for hours.
I knew you could do it. All right, Carrie, why don't you go next? I know when you kind of first came into Covariance, there was some specific things that you looked at right away that you wanted to make changes to, but please talk about kind of, again, what prompted the change and where the journey kind of began.
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to compare with Jason there. So like I said, a lot of our basic benefits were lacking, or our employees were paying a lot for those benefits and maybe not understanding or really getting full benefits out of that. So like I said, I walked in about a year ago. We already had unlimited paid time off. We had parental leave. We had paid time, or, holidays and other paid time off, volunteer time and stuff like that. So that wasn't a concern to me. But when I took a look at the medical, the dental, the EAP plans, those were definitely lacking. And I didn't see high participation in those, or like they could really compete with, bigger employers in any way. Our turnover was a bit high at that time when I walked in. So it was like a monthly average of over 5% over that previous year before I came in. I took a look at it and saw a lot of quick fixes that I could do, but also just taking a deep dive into who were we using as a broker, what plans were we offering, just things like that. I was talking to employees and I understood, or they didn't understand, what their benefits offered them. And so just really listening and understanding what they were going through in their own personal situations. And then, realizing that most of our employees are of a younger demographic. So really, they maybe had never had benefits on their own before. And then there's always the thing of you don't know what you have until you need to use it. So I had a lot of employees kind of faced in those situations. So I started evaluating different insurance brokers, what they had as far as carriers, try to look at some neat alternatives that they had to offer. But also, with a broad range of people and their needs and stuff too, you have to keep it somewhat simple so people understand that too. I also was looking for a broker that would be an advocate for us with carriers, because in my past lives, I've run into situations where, people just pay what the carrier says or what the doctor says and don't really understand that. So I knew with the right broker that we could really have the opportunity to dig in if we needed to. So and we had also grown up. So we were over 50 employees. So we were able to go to some different type of plans that we didn't have the choice of previously. So, once I had all that information gathered, by June of last year, our open enrollment, or our enrollment period, is from September 1st through August 31st. So I was happy to be able to make those changes before the end of the year. So in June, I got to present that to leadership, and they kind of just gave me the green light to figure it out and see what we needed to have. And then we were able to start implementing some changes in September. So
Yeah, what I like about that is something that I think employees kind of take for granted, of something that's like been set, you kind of leave it and walk away, and it's just something you do year over year. But by kind of looking at the data of who was participating and really not participating, that was kind of your secret sauce to making some changes. That's awesome.
definitely.
Yeah. All right, Stacy, why don't you go next? Be fun from the talent acquisition side. I'm sure you have a lot on attracting.
Yes. So here at Wellmark, I would say we've always had like tools to help our leaders make that equitable hiring decisions. But we really, I guess, wanted to look at ways where we were making sure it was data driven and unbiased in nature. So we actually invested in a new like talent acquisition applicant tracking system last year. And then so I think that has helped a lot. We've placed, there's lots of tools and resources out there for our leaders to jump in. Our team also meets with leaders as they're hiring to kind of go over that information because it can get overwhelming. And then I'll touch a little bit. We also have an inclusion council here at Wellmark. And the inclusion council is actually chaired by our CEO. Oftentimes, that council is tasked to gather any feedback they hear from the workforce. We also conduct employee surveys. In my team, as we actually hire new hires, we gather any tidbits, positive or constructive feedback around our benefits, and in partner would share that feedback to our benefits or our comp team, just so that we can maybe take a look at it on a annual basis to see if there's any benefits or anything that we might need to change. And then I also was going to add, just like Jason, we actually this year added 2 benefits, Martin Luther King and Juneteenth, to our paid holidays as well. I really thought it aligned with our core values, and got really, positive feedback, obviously, from our workforce about adding those changes. We also looked at, Wellmark, we're kind of a mid-sized company, so we have about 1,800 employees. So I always felt like we had a pretty competitive compensation package. We, in addition to our pay time off, we offer something called My Time Off, where employees can elect to purchase additional days if they need it. If you want to go back to school, we'll also pay back, help you with $10,000 worth of tuition, books, and fees. And if you're a new hire and already graduated, we'll also help pay back your student loans. So those are some like cool things that were already existing. We also added a lifestyle savings account, so you can use that to purchase anything that's health and wellness related. I know, like an Apple Watch, if you need a new Apple Watch, I actually bought a new ergonomic chair recently, and I was like, I can't believe I worked this long during the pandemic on that flimsy chair. I should have bought this a long time ago. It's so much more comfortable. So just little benefits like that. Let's see, what else we also, I don't know, I've been on the team for 12 years, or with Wellmark for 12 years too. And I think something that we also added, we weren't the first employer to add it, but it was the paid parental leave. We also have an adoption assistant benefit. So I guess those are a few things that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, Stacy, but I had a couple of just questions that kind of came to mind when you were discussing some of those things. On the kind of on the talent side, was there anything in specifically you noticed with the new implementation of the software that kind of took out biases? Was there any specific data point or anything that you noticed in that process that got better or got some additional candidates through the pipeline? Anything like that you can kind of speak to?
So one thing I thought was kind of neat is if the hiring leader wanted a candidate to meet with other areas of the business or other individuals, they're not able, that interviewer cannot see the feedback that the leader left until after they enter their feedback. So that way there was no like biased in like, oh, I'm the leader and I'm reading this feedback. And so, or I'm the interviewer and I see what the leader, left. So, you might get persuaded
Right.
to leave the same feedback. So I thought that was kind of a neat aspect to it.
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about kind of the outreach? I know you said that you're involved in the internship program. Is that internship, are those internships paid or unpaid, or can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yep. So I manage our internship program. We're actually relaunching our high school program this summer. So super excited about that. And then in our college internship program. So those are paid opportunities, including the high school program.
Awesome. Okay. I guess before we kind of go on to the next question, does anyone out there have any questions or comments for any of the panelists? Okay, we must all be so engaging that they don't have any questions yet. So, all right, I'm going to shake it up a little bit. Carrie, I'm going to kind of talk to you a little bit, just because I think you probably have just with the changes that you made, but sometimes these efforts can kind of be hard to quantify, especially if you haven't been tracking them or anything like that. So can you talk a little bit about, what quantifying some of the changes it's, has made for you, or if it's leading you into another direction, kind of talk about the numbers behind it.
Yeah, I love numbers. So my past life was the banking world, so I'm used to that. I knew that if we took a look at a bunch of different things, start pulling some different levers, saw who was on what plan, who could go, who might go to another plan, that we could definitely raise our enrollment numbers and help save money for our employees. So, I explained that all to our leadership team a few times, a few different scenarios I gave them. They'd come back at me and said, well, what if we do this? And I was very appreciative of that. And, went back, took the time, sometimes gave me a little bit of a headache, but it was fun and interesting to be able to do that. So, when I took a look at the numbers, as of August of last year, we had only 61% of our employees enrolled in our medical benefits. And when I broke that down, 92% of those were here in Iowa. But I found a HMO plan. So we all know how an HMO plan works. And it was very reasonable rates. It was completely 100% comparable to a PPO plan that we have. And, their deductibles, their copays, that type of thing, they were exactly the same. The only difference is you can't use doctors outside of Iowa unless you have emergency. So, but I figured with 92% of our employees being here, that would be a great option. And the leadership team was 100% behind being able to offer that HMO plan, 100% premium paid for the employees. So, and then also picking up a larger portion for their dependents. So with that plan, employees are, covered for their own premium 100%. If they have a family on that plan, it's $180 a month. So for a smaller employer, that's a pretty good deal. So as of March 1st, when I look at our numbers, we've increased our headcount by 9% since August. And we have increased our enrollment in our medical plans by 33%. So now we have 83% of our employees enrolled in medical plans. And currently 93% of those are here in Iowa, with 50% of them being on the HMO plan. So I think those numbers really tell that story, that we were able to increase our enrollment and use it as a retention tool. And, we've been able to lower our turnover rate as well. Our dental plans, we didn't pay anything for the employees. Employees paid that 100%. So essentially they could go out and just get their own plan on their own for the same cost. But we took on a greater portion of that. So now the company is absorbing about 54% of that cost, and our dental enrollment went up 40%. So I think it shows what a good investment Covariance is making in our employees.
Yeah, well, as a mom with 2 kids who went through orthodontics, I can tell that helps a lot. All right, Stacy, what about you? What are some things that you kind of the ROI or what you've been able to tie for leadership on some of the efforts you guys have made?
I think, as I mentioned, we just started implementing this new software, and I didn't share it earlier. I know someone had messaged me about it, but we switched to Smart Recruiters, and it's been a big shift. And I think we're still trying to gather all the data around it. It's also helped our team a lot from a recruitment perspective, because we don't want candidates to sit out there too long without a response from us. So it also helps our team to be accountable so that we're effectively communicating with candidates quicker. And then we're also playing around with being able to create different communities. So if you're interested in technology or internships, to start, as I go out to campus and start meeting students, I can put them all in there, and then we can communicate, create some kind of campaign to communicate with them when we start the recruiting process for our internship. So we're still kind of learning that system and trying to figure out what's the best way to effectively use it.
Yeah, awesome. Jason, what about you? Is there some of these big changes that you guys have made that you've directly noticed an impact in either recruitment or retainment?
Yeah, I think it's a couple-fold, right? I think let's put it a couple ways. The hiring process has been a lot shorter for us. We've actually shortened our window of being able to hire. We found ourselves specifically within the tech space where people were sitting kind of on the edge of, yeah, it sounds great to come work for you, but I've got slightly better benefits, or I don't see as much of a benefit than others. And what we have seen is a pretty significant increase of, hey, ones that we've offered to, we've seen basically a 30% increase in actually landing those individuals or those candidates. And I attest that a lot to our benefits and the changes that we've made there. I mean, it's great to work for me, I get it, but at the end of the day, it's more about what those individuals and how they feel a part of the team and the culture and caring for them, especially when you're hiring them. A couple other interesting things that have been both good and challenging is what I would say is our sabbatical program. Before, you had to have PTO to leverage kind of through that, right? You didn't want to take 4 or 3 weeks off and have it kind of unpaid. You had to kind of reserve PTO. And so now with MTO and it's paid time off plus a stipend, if you will, for travel and so forth, we've seen over a 90% usage of sabbaticals. And what I've actually seen from that is team members, I'll call it refreshed, right? At the end of the day, you go away for 3 weeks. I know there's a couple of team members. If you watch any of the LinkedIn from my TA group, people are talking about our sabbaticals and how they went on a road trip across the country to visit different parks, or they did travel abroad. Those things are creating a great tie. And when they come back, they're telling their great stories. They're refreshed and are revitalized. And I think it's really helped with the overall wellness. The reason that's also a challenge is you can imagine a team member leaving for 3 weeks, right? So it's created some additional stressors, if you will, on some of our leadership and how we care for that. I think we're working through it. I think we're doing a good job of it, but it's absolutely a benefit that I think has helped with our retention. Employee ownership at 3 years is absolutely that. We've had a lot of individuals, our metrics were just kind of between 2 years and 3 years. They're kind of on that window of, do I stay? And once we find that they actually stay or an employee owner, that benefit helps us to retain them even more. I don't have the metrics on that, but I've just seen a shift of people maybe who are leaving kind of in the middle, because 5 years is a long time. It's a long time for people to say that, hey, I've got that benefit. And so now at 3 years, we find them staying and then staying longer with us because of that as well.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, nationally, I think the turnover is 4 years, and then in IT, I think it's like, 1.9 years for people moving on. So I can imagine that moving that needle a little bit for you guys.
I agree. I think the other thing we have not done a great job of that we are kicking off this year is our internship program. So Stacy, I'm going to call you later, pick your brain on some of those things. But, we will have 12 interns for this summer. We're excited about it. I think, again, it's kind of how do you manage that successfully? If you think about the size of the 3 organizations, Carrie, you're at, 50 plus. We're at about 700. Stacy, you're at 1,800, right? There's different challenges to the size of the organizations and how that fits in the mix and how you make that work. So I'm excited for our changes. I'm more excited because I actually see the results in our business growth. I fundamentally believe that as you hire good talent, you retain good talent, then you'll continue to grow as a company. And we've seen that significant growth, which allows us to look and hire and retain more talent. And specifically, we need them here in Iowa. We need to hire and retain that good talent in Iowa. Yeah, we do hire remote people. We leverage them greatly. But we get them back to Iowa and to our culture as quickly as possible so they can understand what they're a part of and want to be a part of. So
awesome. Jen Smith, I see you have your hand up. What can we answer for you, or what comment do you have?
Thanks. It bugs me when my hand stays up when I'm talking, so let me lower it. All right. Yeah, so first, just a comment, we gather every single month as a committee and we talk about things that are going on out in the industry, and almost without fail, someone is just like, oh, we're just not far enough along. And, we haven't done that much in this area. And we're just, and and I've heard and I'm going to share y'all's secrets. Like every single one of you have said that, in one of our meetings, Jason, Julia, and Stacy, about some aspect of this. But, I guess the comment I have just for the entire group is that progress is progress, and share that information across the industry and across the field in whatever way we can. The second thing that I would share is that I teach in this program for transitioning special operations veterans called the Otter Foundation. And last night I was teaching a class on company research and culture, and we were talking about the comparison between where you can find the bad information about an organization and where you can find the positive, and how to find the truth in the middle somewhere. Because we all know, we go out to Glassdoor, we're going to find at least one terrible review about our organization. People love to say bad things about our organizations. But then when we go to LinkedIn, and I heard all of you kind of touch on this, it's like, here's what's so amazing about our group. They gave me a sabbatical and they just gave me these new benefits, and the recruiter was awesome. And, there's all these positive things about it. And we all know the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I think one of the challenges, that we definitely are looking at in Iowa is just the political climate that we're existing in along the lines of these topics. And I know some of you have locations that are not just based in Iowa, but are maybe regional or Jason global. And so how are we, from a benefits perspective, a recruiting perspective, and a retention perspective, what trends are you all seeing beyond, beyond the HMO versus PPO and all of this stuff, but really being able to connect with the employees and figure out which of those benefits are most meaningful for them. Because the other thing that we hear in every single one of these sessions is connect with your people. Your people will tell you what they want. Your people will tell you what they need. You've got to have transparent conversations. And I just threw a lot of kind of different perspectives into that. But at the end of the day, how do we connect that message of, this is hard. There's good things and bad things. Our political climate is driving some things specifically here in Iowa and other states. How do we get people to feel safe enough to tell us what they need from a benefits perspective to be able to continue to make those incremental improvements? And I recognize you all are speaking from experience and not expertise. Okay. So I'm not trying to make you go on record, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, because you all have been working in this space and you're seeing it and it's happening in real time as you're doing these, as you're rolling these programs out. So
Who wants to tackle it first?
I'd be happy to.
Carrie.
Yeah, so Jennifer, I'm very fortunate that I work in a space where most of our people are in the office at least a couple of days a week. We have a smaller staff of 70 employees, where I've worked with 500, 600, 800, 1,200 people in my previous lives. And my job and my whole kind of world revolves around having conversations, building relationships with people so they do feel comfortable coming to me and sharing their stories. If I hear somebody's having a surgery, kind of talking them through, okay, well, do you realize that you're going to have a deductible? Or, do you realize that you could be looking at this? And, if there's any way possible that you can actually hold off on doing something until the new benefit plan year kicks in. And I was just having a conversation with somebody on their dental work that's happening, that, they have thousands of dollars worth of stuff that needs to be happening. And I said, okay, so maybe he's like, I could space it out over, this amount of time. And I said, okay, well, September, maybe put aside some money into that flexible spending account. And then you have those funds available to you right away. And just really listening and having that trust with employees, I think, is what I get to benefit from at Covariance. I know not everybody gets that.
Yeah, I'll maybe jump in next. And I'm not in HR, so that's great, right? So I can kind of speak from what I think is the best approach, which is, I think you just got to be authentic, right? You really got to listen, and you got to be purposeful in reaching to your team members. And that's really comes through, in my opinion, leadership. I personally make a point to visit with every single leader within my organization, right? So I have 140 team members just within my team, several managers, directors, supervisors, but I make a point to connect with them when they're in town, when they're not in town, whatever that might be in their specific relationship. And I simply listen and ask to say, what is it that you need? And more importantly, what is it that your team needs? And I really encourage them to really connect with their team members to understand what are the things that they feel like we're falling short on. And that's coming from a place where we just simply want to get better, right? We simply want to find ways to continue to improve. Now, I can tell you right now, and I bet Stacy and Carrie would say this as well, everybody has an opinion or a thought around what we should or could do and likely could. And so it's filtering through and listening and knowing that their voices are being heard. And that gets harder as you get larger. I can imagine, Stacy, that, if you have 1,800 people to listen to, that's hard to kind of always grasping and really get your arms around. But for me, what's worked is listening to our committee leaders, getting close to our team members. Really, we're working hard to be authentic and saying we're really working to try to make this and strive for us to get better. And we try to get a little bit better every day, right? Every year we try to improve our benefits in some form or fashion. And we talk to the whys. Why are we trying to do that? Why are we seeking to improve? What's the benefits of that, not only for you as a team member, but for us as an organization? especially as an employee-owned organization and within that mix. So probably pretty simple, but I think it's simply finding ways to connect and listen. Recognize that you've heard them, recognize that we may or may not be able to accomplish all that they want, but we're striving to be better.
Stacy, do you have anything to add there?
Yes, sorry, I had trouble hitting the unmute button there. So, you know, I'm just like talent acquisition, so I don't always get to be involved in a lot of those discussions, but I do know, like I mentioned earlier, we're always trying to gather feedback from our workforce. We have other like pockets of human resources that go out there and talk with leaders, talk with their employees, and like Jason mentioned, just being authentic and making sure that employees know that they belong, that they feel like they're valued and belong within the organization, and hoping that we get that feedback, that real, feedback from them, so we can consider any changes that we need to make to our benefits. I actually had pulled some like information regarding our health plans, and I wasn't sure if I was going to share it, but at Wellmark, our members like receive the same kind of care. So everything's pretty equitable. We don't discriminate against like gender, race, ethnicity. So I thought that was kind of worth mentioning, since there's so much going on in the kind of political climate right now.
Absolutely.
Hey, just one more thing I'd add, sorry to jump in here
No.
back to Jennifer's question. It's the other thing I think is important is, I know our committees, but also just creating opportunities for people to share their voice. I know that for us, we do something that's called Okay to Ask. It's okay to ask. It's kind of led by our idea council and such. And it's various topics. I'm actually excited for one that we're having on Thursday because it relates to disabilities. Kind of education around those that work and have disabilities and such. And it strikes home for me a little bit. I have my eldest daughter who has mild cerebral palsy, also has type 1 diabetes. And so she's had kind of a lot to deal with and we're out of work with. And I just always have desired and wanted her voice to be able to be heard, to say, here's the challenges that I face and try to do my job every day. But I want to feel included and I want to have a voice. So I think it's really important that you create opportunities for people to share their voice and their thoughts and their challenges, again, to make sure that you can hear all perspectives. And I think sometimes that's not always easy, right? Especially as a leadership, because you really want to be able to create that great voice or allow for those questions to be asked. But it's not always easy conversations because you're not necessarily, I'm not always in the know, right? I'm not always understanding, or I'm not from a certain perspective, but I think creating the opportunity for people to share is important.
And Jason, you reminded me of something, as we transitioned, back into kind of working in the office. Wellmark's hybrid, but we also created a lot of focus groups. Like we sent emails out to see if people wanted to be involved in a focus group, and then getting small groups together to talk about anything that they might have around benefits, or just, coming back to the office, what things they wanted to discuss as a group. So
those were all great answers. Thank you. I can speak for myself. I think anonymity is an important part of giving feedback as well too. It, like, for me personally, I never like to be the squeaky wheel or anything like that, but sometimes when I feel like there's not enough being done or anything like that, when they put out surveys, they're anonymous and they go very high up, they're not directly to managers, so it's a little bit easier to talk about, I think, some of those things when you a little bit more openly when you're anonymous to start anyway.
It's a slippery slope though too. Right,
It is.
Julia?
Yeah,
Right.
It is. It's finding that.
That good balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're almost here at time, and I guess I just I just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone else's hand or anything in the chat. Does anyone have any kind of final questions or comments? Not, I do have one more question, but
Hey, Julia, I want to ask a question, but after your question.
okay. Our question, we kind of came up with is I think what kind of makes some of these conversations a little bit challenging is because there's lots of different viewpoints out there. Jason, you've talked about the moving the needle from 5 years to 3 years. How have you communicated some of these changes and the why? And really kind of gotten some naysayers on board to some of the changes that maybe you've made. I can see where somebody who's maybe been there 6 years and all of a sudden you make this change and, well, darn it, like how has your guys' organizations kind of handled and communicated some of these changes?
I'll jump in here. I say very carefully. I think the key is to understand what's the purpose and the why behind it. We also made it a very pointed that this was intended to be a positive thing for team members, and it wasn't meant to be punitive in any way. And so we just simply said, because for example, let's use the vesting schedule or even the sabbaticals. Our previous sabbaticals were every 3 years. We did move it to 5 and gave them more benefits within it. But some people are like, well, I was supposed to have a sabbatical this year. Now I'm not going to get it for 2 more. No, we honored, kind of grandfathered some of the things that team members had already in queue to make sure that it was never viewed or ever experienced as a punitive type of things. That was never our intent and so forth. So we had lots of good conversations around the naysayers like, well, you're just trying to do this for X, Y. No, here's the reasons why. And we just talked about it and talked through it. And once we had opportunity, our people and culture team did a phenomenal job on those one-off scenarios where people felt like that they were being disserviced and really worked through plans for that. And so I would say the first year of those changes, it obviously had a greater impact because we were trying to do a little bit of grandfathering. We're trying to work into those that are receiving those benefits. And we were just saying, give us grace, let us work through this together with you and we'll figure it out. But communication and over communication and then communicate 16 more times was the key, just so that people had awareness and they could, have a forum by which to ask questions so they felt like they really understood.
Stacy, I'm going to go to you next because I've been in technology for 20 years and you implemented a new software, which everyone loves that. And you didn't probably do it to make anyone's life miserable or anything like that. So can you talk through a little bit maybe about that change? Oh, no, she's having some technical.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there
Sorry.
you are.
I would say probably the most challenging part from my experiences, our implementation, like our go live date for our team was like very short. Like we were pretty aggressive on it. I think it was probably because our old ATS was going to expire a little bit, expire sooner than we thought it was going to be. So we wanted to have a little bit of time to do that. But we've received, I would say, pretty great feedback from leaders and even just interviewers. It can get a little overwhelming because sometimes leaders will get notified at every time a candidate applies. And so we just kind of educate them, like, you don't have to look at candidates as they come in. That's what our job is. But if you're curious, you can. And then our ATS system is like a global company. So for whatever reason, it gets candidates out of the state a lot. So that gets a little frustrating too. And I don't know that there's nothing we can really turn off on it. But overall, I think, those were the little challenges that we faced, but we received pretty good feedback. It reminds leaders too, like, hey, you need to give feedback. If you want to move on this candidate, you need to enter your feedback, because we can't do any, we can't do anything from a compliance perspective until it gets completed, so we can move forward.
Great, thank you.
Stacy, it sounds like you just need to invite everybody to come to Iowa. That's
Yeah.
fine. All of
Yes.
you want to just come on over. It's great here.
Carrie, anything you'd like to add? I know yours was probably a little bit easier sell. Everything's getting better. But I'm sure on the executive team, maybe you had a little, it's a newer company, it's a startup. So there's obviously, financial, considerations and things like that for any company. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there was much pushback on what we were doing and what I had suggested. I think it was well received by employees. And like I said, that was the basics. We do still have work to do. Our holidays need to be improved a little bit. I'm not going to lie about that. But then, on the flip side, we've been able to give employees off the week between Christmas and New Year's for the last couple of years. So, it's the naysayers on not having a couple holidays that they think that we should have, which I can agree with them. But, just making sure that everybody's looking at all angles. So we'll continue to work on it and continue to improve.
Yeah, like we said from the beginning, it's a journey for sure. Yeah. Jen, what was your question?
This is a question, more of a statement, because I changed my approach in the chat, please. There is just a general question, what else do you guys want to know about? Every month we get together in a committee and we always come up with something, but it's kind of like my earlier question, like we're here to support all of our member organizations. So what do y'all want to know about? And Molly, I put you up as the offering email for that. So Molly is the single consistent point in all of our committees at TAI. And so if you do have an idea that comes to you, because I know like I have a billion ideas until somebody asks me, like that's my mindset. So if something comes up, please shoot it over to Molly, and then Molly will share it back with us in our next committee meeting so that we can tackle that. And then just real quick before you close out, Julia, we are shaping up a conversation that will touch a little bit on what you're talking about, Melissa, really looking at kind of technology, leadership, and looking at the different pipelines that we are creating inside of Iowa, Delta V being one of them. I'll give a little shout out to your place. And really just kind of how are we building them? How are we helping people to transition? How are we helping people to navigate all of this? And unless I'm misremembering, Tony waved to the crowd, Tony. Tony volunteered to be part of that, along with the president of DMAC out in Des Moines. So, we'll have an interesting conversation there, and we're going to shake that thing up, figure out exactly where we're going to focus that, but just to tease that a little bit. So back to you, Julia. Thank you for letting me have a few seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. I hope that everyone can take away a few ideas to maybe start discussions within your own organizations. I think I speak for everyone. If there's any questions or any follow-up that we can help provide anyone on the call, I think please reach out. I think all of us are probably on LinkedIn. So
Yeah, thank you, Julia. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. Carrie, Stacy, and Jason, thanks so much for sharing and giving a little insight to what's going on in your organizations. And like Jennifer said, if there's anything anybody wants to talk about in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much, everybody.